Pretty smart little good girl.
Yeah.
They came from somewhere in Toronto, Mark. I don't know, but
they live at the garage too, above the garage.
Yeah, he says, I don't know how Jim worked 4 days a week because we're working 6 and can't keep up.
Well, good.
Congratulations, David Campbell, on your daughter's graduation.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was really exciting.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, and with distinction.
Our middle granddaughter's video last night. She's graduated from the Rothman School of Business through University of Toronto.
Oh, fantastic.
She was actually hired back in February to a company, and she's went right on with them.
Yeah, Emily is actually working for the University of Waterloo now, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, you said that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going live now. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good morning, committee. It's 9 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order, and I'll ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, I'll move to public meeting. Welcome and good morning. Today there is one public meeting regarding proposed development applications in accordance with the Planning Act. I'm pleased to advise that this is being broadcast live on the Township's YouTube channel, where a recording of this meeting will be available. Notice of the meeting was sent by first-class mail to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property. Signage was also posted on the subject property to provide information about the application. All of this is in conformance with the Planning Act process for a statutory public meeting. The purpose of the meeting is to inform and provide the public and the Planning and Development Committee with an opportunity to ask questions or express views with respect to the proposal. The format of the public meeting will be as follows. 1, the applicant's agent will generally explain the purpose and effect of the application. 2, township staff can provide further information and clarify any statements of the applicant and or their agent. 3, the public will be permitted to ask questions and express views on the proposal, and then the public portion of the meeting will be closed. And 4, lastly, members of the committee will be given the opportunity to ask questions for clarification on the proposal and provide comments. At the conclusion of the meeting, the applicant, their agent, and if required, township staff will be given the opportunity to respond to the questions and comments received. No decision will be made today following the public meeting on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application. Following this meeting, the information obtained, including from questions and comments submitted by members of the public and committee, will assist the township and applicant's team to determine next steps. Once the township is satisfied with the information provided by the applicant and their consultants, an additional public meeting may be scheduled or a report will return to this committee. The township is the approval authority for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, for which this committee may recommend the bylaws to be considered by council or ask for additional information prior to the council's consideration. If in the future council decides in favor of the application by adopting recommendation from this committee, members of the public who have provided oral or written submissions but disagree with the decisions may be entitled to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal under the Planning Act. Individuals attending the public meetings by YouTube, Zoom, or telephone may email or call the Township Planning Department to submit information to receive notice of the decision of the application. So now the public meeting for the 1948, I'll ask upon the applicant agent, Victoria Lemieux from Morgan Planning, to please present the information provided in item C 1.3.1 of the agenda package and explain the purpose and effect of the application. Good morning, Victoria, and it's all yours. If you want to share your screen.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members of committee. Nice to see everyone this morning. Just going to share my screen to the presentation. So hopefully that's now on everybody's screen. Yep. So firstly, I'd like to introduce myself to any members of the public as well who might be watching. So my name is Victoria Lemieux, and I'm a senior planner with Morgan Planning and Development. And I'm here this morning on behalf of the owners of 1948 Upper Big Chute Road. So here we have an overview of the location of the subject land. So as you can see, the property is located just northeast of the Coldwater settlement area, as well as to the east of Festerton. and along the east side of Upper Big Chute Road itself. So a very brief overview of the purpose of the application submitted. So the zoning amendment at this point was submitted to allow for the construction of an accessory dwelling unit, but within an accessory building with a maximum footprint of 1,000 square feet. So the proposed accessory dwelling unit is to be located in the northwest portion of the subject lands, and I will provide an illustration of where that location is proposed to be. As well, it would also have separate septic and well servicing, separate from the existing residential dwelling. So I also wanted to reiterate to committee this morning that we are aware of the staff report that was issued as part of the agenda, and we are currently working with staff to revise the proposed amendment to include the request to recognize the existing hobby farm that is on the subject property. So this application will be coming forward to the committee at a subsequent meeting in the future. However, it is obviously noted that because a circulation for public meeting was reached out to neighbors, that we're still going to go ahead with a very brief presentation this morning for anyone who might be watching. So the subject property has an approximate lot frontage of 183 meters on Upper Big Chute Road and a lot area of about 6.9 acres. The property is currently developed with a residential dwelling as well as some accessory structures, and again is serviced by private well and septic. The surrounding lands, as many of the committee members may know, is predominantly agricultural, along with some rural residential lots as well. So here we have an overview of the aerial imagery of the subject property. As you can see, the existing developed area of the lot is located along the frontage of Upper Big Chute Road. So the applicable zoning and designation on the subject lands is shown here from excerpts of the township document. So on the left, you can see that the property is zoned rural residential. And on the right side of the screen, you can see that the property is designated rural in the township's official plan. Here we have the zoning matrix that was submitted as part of our application. I know it's probably hard for members of committee to read, but I just wanted to reiterate the areas in red at the bottom here, just identifying the two sections of the zoning bylaw that the proposed accessory dwelling unit would require relief from. One being the allowance for it to be located in a detached accessory building, and two, the proposal of the dwelling unit to be 1,000 square feet. So a little bit larger than what the permitted total gross floor area would be permitted in the zoning bylaw. So here's an overview of the concept plan for the property, showing both the existing structures as well as the proposed. Zooming in a bit closer, again, as you can see, the existing built form is located along the frontage of Upper Big Chute Road, with the proposed secondary dwelling use being proposed in the northwest corner. So the proposed driveway that's shown, it may look a little funny if you had never been to the site before, but this area is actually currently the traveled area that the owners use to get to this portion of the property. So the proposed driveway location was intentional in that this area is already used for tractors, et cetera, to reach this portion of the property. As well, I just wanted to point out to members of the committee as well as members of the public that this location is well treed and well buffered away from the frontage of Upper Big Chute Road as well as adjacent neighbors. So we do believe that this location for this additional built form would be appropriate for the surrounding community. So a very brief overview of applicable planning policy. Again, at this time, I'm only speaking to the proposed accessory dwelling unit. When we come back to committee to also speak to the hobby farm use, I will speak to the policy review based on that at that time. So both the provincial policy statement as well as the growth plan have been reviewed in detail based on the proposed zoning amendment for the accessory dwelling unit. And we do believe that the proposed amendment is consistent with both the provincial policy statement as well as the growth plan. In regards to the County of Simcoe's official plan, as you can see on the right side, the property is designated in the rural designation as well at the county level. And the county level directs the municipalities to make appropriate provisions for second units within their official plans. And therefore, we do believe that the proposed zoning amendment for the second dwelling is consistent with the direction of the county's official plan. And again, to reiterate, the property is also designated rural at the township level. The township's official plan does have a section to speak to these accessory dwelling units, and a thorough review has been completed of all applicable policy in the official plan, and it is our opinion that the proposed secondary dwelling unit is consistent with the direction at the township level as well. So in closing, to reiterate, the proposed amendment is essentially to rezone the subject lands from the current rural residential use to a site-specific use, site-specific zone. And this site-specific zone would permit the proposed accessory building in an accessory dwelling unit. We do believe that the application is consistent with all applicable policies. And we do also believe that the application is further supported by recent updates to the Planning Act, which does direct municipalities to allow for provisions in regards to accessory dwelling units within both existing dwellings and accessory buildings. So we do look forward to coming back to committee and council at subsequent meetings to present the revised application at that time. And again, just to reiterate, we have reviewed the staff report and do agree with the requested deferral to allow us that time to finalize the application. So I'm happy to answer any questions or comments that committee or members of the public might have. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. So I'll ask if our planner, Emily, has anything to add to the information presented by the applicant, and maybe you could highlight what you want to be brought up in compliance here.
For sure. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Victoria, for the presentation. So at this time, staff have not undertaken a very detailed policy analysis given the ongoing circumstances on the property, being the clean and clear issues identified and the amended request to add a hobby farm use to the site-specific zone. The applicant and their agents are working with staff and the municipal bylaw officer to correct these issues. So we do look forward to bringing the application back at a later date, subject to another public meeting and recirculation, as the additional proposed use is a substantial change and would require recirculation through the Planning Act. However, we definitely welcome and encourage any preliminary thoughts or comments from the committee members or any members of the public attending, so that way we can take them into consideration for the amended proposal. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. So now I'll open up for the public with questions and comments. Any persons present on Zoom or telephone who have either questions or comments on the application will now be invited to speak. Please unmute yourself when recognized and turn on your camera if you wish. You will be required to give your full name and address for the minutes. Please note that your comments will also be recorded and live streamed to the Township's YouTube channel and will remain online. The Township doesn't have the ability to edit the live stream or to remove any personal information provided in the course of submitting comments or questions. If there are any members of the public who would like to speak, please unmute yourself now and give your name and address for the minutes. So we'll wait for a few minutes, and I'm not sure if David or Andrew can assist us if anyone wants to speak. Oh, our CAO would like to speak.
Thank you, through the chair. I just scrolled through the attendees and I do not see any public on the line. So.
Okay, so we'll give them a couple more seconds here to come on. Seeing none, the next step is if any more anything more to add? Emily, I guess you just finished there, and would anything with Victoria have any other comments you'd like to add to this? Okay, I think we're okay then. So we'll open up for the committee. Does the committee have any comments? Member Dunlop.
Okay, through the chair to Katie, Emily. So I know that we are allowing these secondary residents. How many are we able to allow on a piece of property?
Okay, I'll let either Emily or Katie speak. Katie, if you would like to answer that.
Good morning, committee. Thank you, Chair. Through to Member Dunlop's question, the province has mandated essentially that they could have up to 3 units on a property. So our new official plan that we're working on will set out some criteria and guidance and requirements for if we want 3 units on a property, or how we go about putting those 3 units, what requirements they'd have to make it meet in terms of servicing and all of that kind of stuff. So until that time, really the only guidance we have is our current official plan, which allows for that 1 additional unit, typically in the form of an accessory apartment, as we've seen, which is permitted as of right. And council has seen a couple of the applications now where people are proposing to build it in an accessory building. However, this would be a first for us in the rural or agricultural area. The other ones we've seen so far within settlement areas. So it is certainly something we're looking at. The province has stated they want us to say up to 3 units on certain properties, though we can specify requirements for that. So our new official plan, which I have gotten a preliminary look at in the past, is going to restrict it away from the waterfront areas, for example, but it will allow for it in terms of these rural or agricultural properties, as well as in our settlement areas.
Okay, so this one is right on the Bear Creek River, back in that corner. So I'm just questioning, and I don't want to get into the weeds on this, but I would appreciate an answer, is like, okay, a farmer can't sell a piece of property and allow a second house, but you can have up to 3? Like, this is being put on rural property, on agricultural land that was farmed, and we're allowing these things to go through. And I'm not against this one. I'm not saying I don't want this one, but I'm just saying in future, a farmer can't sell a piece of property and let somebody live there, but you can have up to 3 structures on a piece of property. I don't think we're going in the right way here, guys. Sorry, that's my opinion.
Okay, I'll let Katie speak to that, and then Mayor Burkett.
Thank you, Chair Taylor. Through to Member Dunlop's comments, it is very confusing that you're not allowed to sever property. However, the province, in response to that, seems to be pushing the fact that you could build more houses on a property. So I agree, it is very confusing. However, that is the provincial mandate, and it is the provincial policies passed by our MPPs that are pushing us in that direction.
So can I just further to that, Chair?
Yes.
So then I would like our township and send letters to the rest of them. Then let's get the province on line here. If we want more houses in the country, then let's start allowing a farmer to sell a piece of property. They need more land to put houses on. Farmers have all this acreage. If you're along a country road, we're not asking for new roads. We're not asking for new snow plowing. We're not asking for more garbage. You're right there. I would like our township to go forward and say, okay, start allowing a farmer to have an extra lot. I won't go any farther, CAO.
I think
that's another meeting.
Okay, Member Burkett, and then our CAO.
Through the chair, and of course, this is all part of the MCR process that I think the county is the exercise they're doing. So on June 21st and on June 28th, there are 2 public meetings, but this is driven by the province. And unfortunately, as Katie has said, they're leaving it up to us, but there's a lot of criteria that falls into place before you can put 3 accessory buildings on a piece of property. It's based on square footage of the principal residence. Can you have 3? Maybe. But again, it's very cloudy. And I think we need to have all our MPPs involved and try and understand what we need to deal with. And unless we voice a concern, as we have down at the county, nothing will change. Again, we have planners in the city of Toronto making rules for rural Ontario because there's a shortage of homes, but not allowing us to sever properties and doing what they're doing. I can see 1 accessory building, but I struggle with 3 on some properties. Just my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Our CEO would like to speak, and then Member Cox.
Yeah, I just wanted to, in lieu of Allison being here, I just wanted to refocus council on the application at hand. All great comments, but probably not the time to be having them. That's another day's discussion. So.
Thank you for the reminder, and we'll let Member Cox speak.
No, I was thinking the same as the CEO.
Okay, my comments are like I'm fully support the proposal as long as we bring things that aren't in compliance. And everyone knows there was a barn there years ago, and a few of us know the property very well. And I like affordable housing. You won't be able to see the house from the road, and even though it's quite a long driveway there, but I echo what the deputy mayor has said, but let's deal with this one. And I think it's a good fix for that place, as long as the township staff agree that things have been improved there. So that's good. Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to call the public portion closed, and I'll ask if Mr. Plunkett, who's filling in for Allison, our Director of Finance and Treasurer, would like to read a motion for us.
Yes, Mr. Chair. The motion is that planning report number P22-021 dated June 15th, 2022, with respect to the zoning bylaw amendment application file number Z-22-05 for the subject property located at 1948 Upper Big Chute Road be received. And further, that prior to the consideration of a draft zoning bylaw amendment by council, the property be brought into compliance with the township zoning and municipal bylaws to the satisfaction of the township, and/or an amended proposal be received. And further, that should an amended proposal that substantially changes the application be received, the application be recirculated and subject to an additional public meeting before the committee prior to council's consideration of a zoning bylaw amendment.
Any comments on the motion? If not, do I have a mover there? Moved by Member Dunlop, second by Member Cox. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, thank you, Victoria. And so there's no delegations. Anyone would like the consent agenda, any items pulled from the consent agenda? I see none. Then if I'll ask for a motion for approval of the regular agenda. Over to you, Mr. Plunkett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion is that the agenda be adopted, including consent items as circulated with, oh, that's it.
Okay, we have a mover on that one, please. Moved by Member Stevens, second by Member Dunlop. All in favor? That's carried. Reports from officials for direction there. P22-22. Would Katie like to speak to this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will just briefly speak to some of the items here within the report. It is a little bit of a complicated report, so I'll try and go through it a little bit more than I probably normally would. So as council is aware, there's been a lot of Planning Act changes over the past couple of years. So these relate primarily to site plan approval, potential fee refunds, consents or severances through Committee of Adjustment, and some alterations of the powers of Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. So as council is aware, we just talked about it. Bill 108, the More Homes, More Choice Act mandated additional dwelling unit permissions. So we have, as staff, kind of chosen to defer that to the official plan review. However, there's a couple other changes to the Planning Act that we feel are more time sensitive, and we really should be doing something sooner with those. So the first one was Bill 276. It was introduced in April of 2021. It was really to do with COVID, but it also, as sometimes they do, snuck some other things in there. So essentially, since the beginning of this year, there's some additional powers for the Committee of Adjustment because consents are delegated by council to the Committee of Adjustments. That's why these powers are for Committee of Adjustment. So these relate to consents, which a consent application is a land severance, a lot addition, or right of way. So essentially in the past, you were not able to cancel a consent. We always said in the planning world, once a consent, always a consent. And that led to some operational challenges at times for right of ways or for lot additions, not right of ways. Now, however, you do have the ability to cancel a consent. However, we need to figure out a way to do that here at the township level. So that's just one example. And we weren't too, out of the gate there at the beginning of the year. We hadn't had any requests. However, we have now had a request. So we really just need to clean up a couple of those increased powers for the Committee of Adjustment by adding some fees to our fees bylaw for new services we can now provide. The next bill we wanted to talk about was Bill 109. So this was more recently introduced March 30th, 2022. And then proposed changes were posted to the ERO, which is essentially the place online where you can go and comment on legislative changes. So it's a little bit weird here because the commenting period basically ran until the end of April. However, the bill was given royal assent on April 14th. So just 2 weeks after it was introduced for comment. So a lot of municipalities, including us, we really didn't have the opportunity to comment. However, the Director of Planning did sign, you'll see an attachment there to the report, did sign some comments on behalf of planning directors throughout the county, just to provide some feedback, as we're really not, from a staff point of view, in favor of some of the things that they have proposed and that now are taking effect. So the big things here for council, as I mentioned, those powers for Committee of Adjustment, council won't really see those. They are some things that are going to help our residents. You get 2 years now to finalize a consent, so a right-of-way, a lot addition, or a new lot. That's those conditions when we give provisional approval and they have to get a survey, they have to get legal paperwork done, all that kind of stuff. You used to only have 1 year to finalize all that, and that was right in the legislation, and now you have 2 years. So there are some good things in there, but for sure. And then the ability to cancel a consent, that is actually great for the township as well. We had a few instances in the years past where we had to do a small road widening, a small conveyance of land to break a previous consent. So now someone can go through a process formally and do that, so we won't have to take this weird 1 foot by 1 foot piece of property. So those are great things. Then we just need to kind of clean up our fees bylaw in order to accomplish that. However, Bill 109 is really the meaty one. So that's the one that just got royal assent in April, that we really weren't anticipating coming down that quickly. So the number one thing everyone's talking about is the refund of application fees. So starting on January 1st, 2023, if townships don't approve an application in a certain amount of time, we will be required to refund portions of the application fee. So I'm not going to get too much into that. There is an article by Weir Folds, the law firm attached to the report, that does speak to that a little bit. There's certainly lots of material online. AMO released something. I believe the Treasurers Association released something. And this doesn't come into play until January 1st. So we still, as staff, are meeting with our counterparts and trying to figure out what we're going to do there. So we are just kind of put that on the back burner until in the fall. And then we'll come back to council with some proposals or some strategy, hopefully that our counterparts and us in planning here, hopefully we can come up with. So that was the first thing. There's really 6 main areas in the report. The second and third thing are really just increased powers for the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Just because of my personality, I'd like to point out the irony that the minister is now saying they can take more time to approve things, but townships will have to refund application fees if they don't approve things in a timely manner. So I thought that was kind of funny. Yeah. But the fourth thing is probably gonna highlight some eyebrows here for council. The province is mandating that site plan control be delegated to a staff person. So this is a little bit different for us. We do already delegate residential site plans So council's very familiar with the development at 3600 Narrows Road. Each of those lots is under site plan control. Township staff have been working through those site plan applications, and we approve those in-house. We still follow a process. We still make sure everything is as it should be, similar to if we were reporting to council on it. Council sees that through their confidential monthly update. So the change here is that now all site plan approvals have to be delegated to staff. So it is interesting, the site plan process, because there was already no appeal mechanism for a resident. It's not like a normal Planning Act application where we have a public meeting and people can provide comments and people can appeal if they don't like the decision. The only previous and still existing appeal mechanism is from the landowner themselves. And we were not subject to public comments in the past. Similar to a building permit application, there was no opportunity for feedback from the public. So I think that's why the province has done this, is to kind of separate it out and make it a very different application process. Because for site plan control, of course, you already have to have the zoning in place. And, as I said, it really is a technical exercise to go through to make sure drainage is appropriate, to make sure environmental concerns are being looked after, all of that kind of stuff. So that is a big one for council. We do, in our official plan, have some a list of studies, if you will, that we currently ask for. However, our official plan, we've all talked to numerous times about how dated it is. It basically gives council the authority to ask for those studies. However, as council is aware, we typically don't come to you to say what studies should we ask for. That's typically done at a staff level. So we are seeking some direction to clean that up in the delegation bylaw, just to make that more clear. One of the other changes related to site plans that the province has done is that we need a list of complete application requirements. We've already been challenged on this, even though this legislation is only coming into effect July 1st. So essentially, we need a list of studies that we can ask for as a complete application in our official plan. So one of the big things we're here today asking for direction for is to initiate an official plan amendment. That would be a township initiated official plan amendment, similar to when we clean things up in the zoning bylaw. And basically that would just give us that authority to ask for these studies, which we really, starting July 1st, won't have that authority to ask for anymore. So something we just really need to clean up, although we're going through the official plan review, and that's going to come a couple months before. Staff are pretty confident that this simple official plan amendment could be approved by the county in relatively quickly time period, as compared to our new official plan, which the county likely won't approve in a very fast time period, to be quite honest. So just trying to get out of the gate on that. Then the last two, sorry, that was a big one, number 4, their site plans. So number 5, that change was to do with subdivision control. Of course, the counties are approval authority, so we will report back on anything that the county and township staff need to, look into for that one. And number 6 was about the community benefits charge, which is essentially part of development charges and parkland contributions. So it's not applicable for Severn because it's based on these transit-oriented areas where we really don't have that. However, we are going to take under a review of the need for a community benefits charge bylaw if we need to separate that out from the development charge bylaw. And also our director of planning and probably myself, we're actually working on a parkland contribution bylaw as well, just to make that more clear. So in terms of next steps, it's quite a motion staff have recommended. Essentially, we're suggesting that we'll report back in the fall with implementations of the new Planning Act changes that are to take effect in January. We'll report back in the fall on that. We will report back as soon as we're able to the next council meeting, probably at the end of the month here, on an amended delegation bylaw, because as I did state, council has to delegate approval of site plan control now to a staff person. So I'm recommending it's delegated to the director of planning. She already has that delegated authority for residential site plans. So this would just be all site plans. And then as an interim measure, until we get the official plan amendment passed, also delegating the director of planning the ability to determine what studies are required, kind of a little bit of a Band-Aid, hopefully in the interim. Then we'll initiate that official plan amendment. to say that we require a pre-consultation meeting to set out requirements for a complete application, as well as that list of studies or anything we want with an application. So that's a lot there already. And then we're also going to change the update the fees and charges bylaw just to add some of that committee of adjustment stuff to cancel a consent, request an additional certificate, all that kind of stuff that just came into play that we don't have fees for right now. So that's essentially everything, I think, summarized from the report. I know it's a big one. I know there's a lot happening in there. So if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them.
Great. Thank you, Katie. We'll start off with the member Dunlop.
Thanks, Katie, for all of that. My question goes back to that site plan control, taking that away from council and giving it to a staff member. Is that going to speed up getting approval? Because that's where the government was going. My understanding.
Go ahead, Katie.
Thank you, Chair, through to Member Dunlop. Certainly, the province said that they were making all these changes to speed up things. It could speed up things. I mean, from a staff point of view, we don't have to do a staff report to council now when we're ready to approve something. And in going over the background of this report, the Director of Planning and I were chatting about how, you know, that does take time, writing that staff report and waiting for a council meeting. So right now, really, council doesn't see an application until staff are ready to say you should approve this, right? So I mean, we now don't have to write that staff report and we don't have to wait for a council meeting. So probably it will speed it up by about a month, right? Because normally we'd bring it to Planning and Development Committee and then we would wait for it to be ratified by council. So it probably will speed it up by about a month. However, you know, in the grand scheme of things, you know, to a residential property owner, a month is great. You know, certainly they've benefited from that. But to a large developer, a large commercial project, a month really isn't that much time.
And I agree with that. If I was building a house personally, and I had to wait for it to go to planning and then it'd be ratified at council, and I had a month means a lot in a building season. So I agree with that. And my second one was the official plan you mentioned. When did you, if you have any knowledge of when you think that's going to be coming through?
Certainly through the chair, if I can, back to Member Dunlop. So we are hopefully targeting a public information meeting, the director of, a public open house in August, I believe, a public meeting in September, but the Director of Planning can certainly correct me if I'm wrong there, but I believe those are the dates we were contemplating. So certainly this fall, we're looking at having that out for public comment and then hopefully ratifying and getting that off to the county for an approval.
Okay, thanks, Ed. At least it gives us a, oh, she's nodding her head. So.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. Yep, that's
exactly. Good morning, Andrea. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you very much, Chair Taylor and committee members.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments there?
Oh, yep, I have one more.
Okay, go ahead, Member Dunlop.
So through the chair, the Committee of Adjustment. So if I was to pay whatever the fee is and I say I want the ABC and Committee of Adjustment comes out, they say, no, sorry, that can't go. And to date now, I have not been able to have my money back. You submit that money knowing that if one way or the other, you're not getting your money back. Does that change in here also? Do you get your, like when they're saying you got to give your money back, has that got anything to do with Committee of Adjustment?
Through Chair Taylor to Member Dunlop's question, no. So these, the proposed refunding of fees is for applications where committee or council has not made a decision. The Committee of Adjustment, the only changing in fees we're proposing is to add a fee for the cancellation of a consent or an additional consent certificate. So it still is going to be the same business as usual. You know, if you don't like the answer, that doesn't mean you can get a refund. However, there is already in place in some of our documents, I think in the delegation bylaw perhaps, that if someone submits an application and it doesn't actually go to the Committee of Adjustment, then they can apply to get their money back. So sometimes people change their mind, situations change. or we take a quick look at it and tell them we wouldn't support it. But it doesn't go, we don't do a notice, it doesn't go to a meeting, then there is some opportunity to have a refund there.
Okay, thanks. These 15 pages kind of get a little mucky after a while. So I'd read it the July 1st, we have to delegate, but I didn't know whether people were going to get the other fees back. So thanks for that answer. That's all I have.
I have a question there, Katie. You'd mentioned the official plan and accessory dwellings and the granny suite thing. Is that on the radar, and can we see some relief, or do we have to wait our time with the county? I just wonder what the status of that is.
Yeah, so to the chair's question, that is still all part of the official plan review. Certainly, we as staff are anxious to no longer have garden suites in the township if that's what those individuals choose. If they want them to become permanent, that's less paperwork for us, less headache for us, but certainly that's still part of the official plan review and establishing that criteria for where second dwelling units would be permitted as of right, and potentially even third dwelling units.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on the committee with comments? If not, I'll ask Mr. Plunkett for a motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion reads as follows: that planning report number P22-022 dated June 15th, 2022, with respect to Planning Act changes be received. And further, that staff bring forward an updated user fees and services bylaw to include new fees to reflect added powers of the Committee of Adjustment. And further, that staff bring forward an updated delegated authority bylaw to reflect the requirement to delegate site plan approvals. And further, that staff continue to advise council of applications for site plan control through the monthly council update. And further, that staff initiate an official plan amendment to establish complete application and pre-consultation requirements for site plan control and other Planning Act applications. And further, that staff report on a proposed strategy to tackle changes to the Planning Act that are scheduled to take effect on January the 1st, 2023.
Okay, thank you. Any comments on the motion? If not, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder. Moved by member Stevens, second by member Dunlop. All in favor? That's carried. H, any new business to speak of there? I see none there. No closed session, so I could ask Mr. Plunkett for a motion to adjourn. I think you're still on. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion is that this meeting be and is hereby now adjourned at 9:41 a.m.
You have a mover there? Moved by member McIntyre, second by member Cox. All in favor? It's carried. Have a great day and hope you stay dry today.
Good meeting, Chair. Have a good day, everybody.
Have a good day, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.